Welcome to MogulCast, where we uncover the stories behind the world's greatest business empires. Let's get into today's story.
September 28. Lehman Brothers collapses. The global economy is on fire. But inside Goldman Sachs, the mood is different. While millions lose their homes, their jobs, their life savings, Goldman posts a profit of $11.60 billion for the year. Not a loss, a profit. And not just any profit. Their best year ever at the time. This is the story of how one bank turned every crisis into a payday. And it starts with a decision made over a century ago. 1869. Marcus Goldman, a German immigrant, sets up a small commercial paper business in Lower Manhattan. He trades ASUS for cash, helping merchants survive short-term cash crunches. It's simple, honest work. But his son-in-law, Samuel Sachs, has bigger ambitions. By 1896, they're underwriting IPOs, and by 1906, they're the lead bank on Sere's $40 million offering, a record at the time. The firm is growing fast, but one decision in 1929 will change everything. We'll come back to that. 1929 stock market crash nearly destroys Goldman Sachs. The firm is heavily exposed to Goldman Sachs Trading Corporation, a closed-end fund that collapses spectacularly. But instead of folding, the bank doubles down. In the 1930s, they pivot to investment banking, and by the 1950s, they're the go-to firm for corporate America. The lesson? Crises are opportunities. And Goldman Sachs learns to exploit them better than anyone. But not everyone is celebrating. The 1970s and 80s are Goldman's golden age. They go public in 1999, raising $3.60 billion, the largest IPO in U.S. history at the time. By the early 2000s, they're the most profitable investment bank on Wall Street, with a reputation for ruthless efficiency. But their real breakthrough comes in 2004, when they start trading mortgage-backed securities aggressively. This isn't just another business line. It's the foundation of their next fortune. By 2006, Goldman Sachs is the king of mortgage-backed securities. They're packaging subprime loans into complex financial products and selling them to investors worldwide. The housing market is booming, and Goldman is making billions. But behind the scenes, something darker is happening. The bank starts betting against the very products it's selling. And when the market collapses, Goldman doesn't just survive. It thrives. Here's what the media completely got wrong about Goldman Sachs. They weren't just lucky. They were prepared. While other banks were blindly betting on the housing market, Goldman was quietly building a massive short position. In 2007, they start buying credit default swaps, essentially insurance against a market collapse. And when the crisis hits, they cash in. But this wasn't just smart trading. It was a strategy built on exploiting their own clients. Goldman Sachs didn't just bet against the housing market. They sold toxic mortgage-backed securities to their clients while simultaneously shorting them. In 2010, the SEC charges Goldman with fraud, alleging they misled investors about a security called Abacus, 2007 Acon. The bank settles for $550 million, the largest penalty ever for a Wall Street firm at the time. But here's the twist. The settlement is a drop in the bucket compared to their profits. And the real story is even worse. September 2008. Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy. The financial system is in free fall. But Goldman Sachs has a secret weapon, AIG. The insurance giant is on the hook for billions in credit default swaps sold to Goldman. If AIG collapses, Goldman loses everything. So the Federal Reserve steps in, bailing out AIG with $85 billion in taxpayer money. And where does that money go? Straight to Goldman Sachs, $12.90 billion of it. The bank that helped create the crisis gets bailed out by the very people it betrayed. The AIG bailout isn't just a rescue. It's a reward. Goldman Sachs emerges from the crisis stronger than ever. In 2009, they post record profits of $11.60 billion. Their CEO, Lloyd Blankfein, tells a reporter that the bank is doing God's work. But for the millions of Americans who lost their homes, their jobs, their savings, it feels like anything but. And the pattern doesn't end there. Goldman Sachs has been profiting from crises for over a century. And if you've made it this far, you already understand something most analysts completely missed. The 2008 crisis wasn't an anomaly. It was a blueprint. In 2011, Goldman helps Greece hide its debt with complex currency swaps, contributing to the European sovereign debt crisis. In 2020, they profit from the COVID-19 market volatility, posting their best first-quarter revenue in a decade. And in 2023, they're fined $2.90 billion for their role in the OwnMDB scandal, a scheme that looted billions from the Malaysian people. The lesson? For Goldman Sachs, every crisis is an opportunity. Remember that decision in 1929? The one that nearly destroyed Goldman Sachs? It wasn't just about survival. It was about learning to thrive in chaos. The firm's culture is built on a simple principle. Risk is not something to avoid. It's something to exploit. And for over a century, that principle has made Goldman Sachs the most feared and the most profitable bank on Wall Street. But at what cost? Since 2000, Goldman Sachs has paid over $9 billion in fines and settlements for fraud, market manipulation, and other misconduct. But their profits? Over $100 billion in the same period. The math is simple. The fines are just the cost of doing business. And for Goldman Sachs, business has never been better. In 2025, they report record profits again, proving that on Wall Street, crime does pay if you're big enough. Here's the decision that defines Goldman Sachs. In 2007, they chose to bet against their own clients. They knew the housing market was a bubble. They knew their mortgage-backed securities were toxic. But they sold them anyway, because the profits were too big to ignore. And when the market collapsed, they didn't just survive. They made $11.60 billion. That decision didn't just shape the 2008 crisis. It revealed the true nature of Wall Street. By the numbers, $11.60 billion in profits in 2009, while the global economy collapsed. $12.90 billion from the AIG bailout. $9 billion in fines since 2000. Over 1,600 companies underwritten. 35,000 employees worldwide. And a reputation that's equal parts feared and revered. These aren't just numbers. They're the story of a bank that always wins, no matter who loses. Here's the lesson no one wants to learn. Goldman Sachs didn't break the rules. They wrote them. The 2008 crisis wasn't a failure of capitalism. It was capitalism working exactly as intended, for the people at the top. And until the system changes, Goldman Sachs will keep profiting from every crisis, because that's what they were built to do. The question is, when will the rest of us stop letting them? If you want to understand how this pattern repeats across every major business collapse, the next video covers a story with disturbing parallels. A company that, like Goldman Sachs, profited from the suffering of millions while claiming to be the hero. That one is next.
That's the story for today on MogulCast. If you found this valuable, subscribe and hit the bell. A new empire story drops every single weekday. See you tomorrow.